In the richest country in the world, having a child has become something most Americans simply can't afford. This isn't about people not wanting kids. It's about an economy that quietly made parenthood financially impossible. And the real reason has nothing to do with diapers, toys, or lifestyle choices. Once you see the actual math behind housing, childcare, healthcare, and income, this entire crisis suddenly makes sense. Let's break it down. Meet Sarah and Josh. They're both 31. Sarah works in marketing, makes $68,000 a year. Josh is in IT, makes $75,000. Combined household income, $143,000. That puts them in the top 25% of American earners. They live in a mid-sized city, not New York or San Francisco, somewhere normal. They have a modest 2-bedroom apartment, 2 cars, student loans, and about $18,000 in savings. On paper, they're doing everything right. College degrees, stable jobs, dual incomes. They've been married for 3 years, and they want kids. But every time they sit down to run the numbers, the conversation ends the same way. Not yet. Maybe in 2 years. Maybe when we get the promotion. Maybe when we move. Maybe when we pay off more debt. They're not avoiding kids because they don't want them. They're avoiding kids because having one would financially collapse everything they've built. And they're not alone. Across America, millions of educated, employed, financially stable couples are making the same quiet calculation. They didn't decide against kids. They decided against financial ruin. Here's the promise Sarah and Josh were sold. Work hard through your 20s. Build your career. Establish financial stability. Then start a family. That's the sequence. That's the responsible path. And for decades, it worked. In 1985, a couple making the median household income could afford a starter home, 1 car, healthcare, and raise 2 kids on a single income if they needed to. The second income was a cushion, a buffer, extra security. Fast forward to 2026. Sarah and Josh are making more in nominal terms than their parents ever did, but the math doesn't work anymore. The formula stayed the same. Work hard, save up, then have kids. But the costs exploded while the timeline collapsed. The promise stayed the same. The math didn't. And now, parenthood isn't a milestone you reach after financial stability. It's a risk you take that can destroy financial stability. That's the shift nobody talks about. Here's the number that breaks people. The USDA estimates it costs about $310,000 to raise a child from birth to age 18 in a middle-income household. That's $17,222 per year. But that number is a lie. Not because it's wrong, but because it's incomplete. It doesn't capture what having a child actually does to your financial life. A child isn't expensive because of things. Diapers, clothes, toys. Those add up, sure. But that's not what makes kids unaffordable. What makes kids unaffordable is that they remove margin. They eliminate your financial buffer. They lock you into costs you can't escape. They reduce your ability to earn. They force you into a system where one mistake, one layoff, one medical bill can destroy you. The cost of a child isn't $310,000 in spending. It's the destruction of optionality. It's the elimination of flexibility. It's the conversion of a stable 2-income household into a fragile, over-leveraged, one shock away from collapse financial structure. And that's what Sarah and Josh see when they run the numbers. They're not scared of buying a crib. They're scared of what happens when everything has to work perfectly for 18 years straight. Let's break down the 4 traps that make kids financially impossible for the American middle class. Trap 1, housing. People think the cost is an extra bedroom. The real cost is that children require space, and space in America has become obscenely expensive. Sarah and Josh currently live in a 2-bedroom apartment. Rent is $1,950 per month. If they have a baby, they need a bigger place. Not a mansion, just a 3-bedroom so the kid doesn't sleep in the living room forever. A comparable 3-bedroom apartment in their area rents for $2,700 per month. That's an extra $750 per month, $9,000 per year. But it's worse than that, because if they want any stability, if they want to avoid getting priced out by rent increases every year, they need to buy. The median home price in their city is $425,000. With 10% down, their mortgage payment would be $2,850 per month. Plus property taxes, $420 per month, plus insurance, $180 per month, plus maintenance, at least $300 per month. Total monthly housing cost, $3,750. They're currently paying $1,950. That's an $1,800 per month increase, $21,600 per year, just for the space to have a child. And here's the trap. To qualify for that mortgage, they need to show stable income, low debt-to-income ratio, and significant savings. But having a child threatens all three. A second bedroom now costs more than an entire starter home used to, and wages didn't keep up. And most people think that's the biggest expense. It's not even close. Trap 2. Childcare. People think the cost is daycare. The real cost is that childcare now equals a second rent payment, and it often cancels out one entire income. Let's say Sarah wants to go back to work after maternity leave. They need full-time daycare. The average cost of infant care in their state is $1,400 per month. That's $16,800 per year. But Sarah's take-home pay after taxes is about $4,200 per month. After daycare, she's netting $2,800 per month. But she's also commuting, buying work clothes, paying for convenience because she's exhausted. Let's say another $600 per month in work-related costs. Now she's netting $2,200 per month. She's working full-time and bringing home $2,200 after childcare and expenses. That's $26,400 per year. She's making $68,000 and keeping $26,400. She's losing 61% of her income to taxes, childcare, and the cost of working. And this is the two-income trap in action. The economy requires two incomes to afford housing, but children require one income to slow down or stop. And the system leaves no room for that. Sarah can't afford to quit because they need her income for the mortgage, but she can't afford to work because childcare eats her paycheck. This is where the two-income system breaks, and millions of families are stuck in this exact loop. Sarah and Josh are now staring at $38,400 per year in added costs just from housing and childcare. But the system isn't done extracting yet. Trap 3. Healthcare. And this is where the predictability collapses entirely. People think the cost is the hospital bill for birth. The real cost is years of financial uncertainty and ongoing expense. Sarah has employer-sponsored health insurance. It's decent, but her deductible is $3,500. Her out-of-pocket maximum is $7,000. The average cost of childbirth in the US, even with insurance, is $4,500 out of pocket. So right away, they're looking at $4,500 just to have the baby. But it doesn't stop there. Pediatric visits, vaccinations, prescriptions, those add up. Let's say $1,200 per year in medical costs for a healthy child. But what if the child isn't healthy? What if there's a complication during birth? What if the baby needs the NICU? Those costs can be $50,000, $100,000, even with insurance. One medical event can erase years of savings. And even if everything goes perfectly, they're adding $1,200 per year in healthcare costs on top of everything else. Healthcare isn't just expensive, it's unpredictable. And unpredictability is financial poison when you're already running at maximum capacity. Now here's the part that doesn't show up on any budget spreadsheet. Trap 4. The career penalty. And this one compounds for decades. People think having kids doesn't affect income. The reality is that children reduce earning power, especially for mothers. Let's say Sarah takes 3 months of partially paid maternity leave. She loses about $8,000 in income during that time. But the real cost is what happens after she comes back. Research shows that mothers are passed over for promotions at higher rates than childless women. They're seen as less committed, less available, less promotable. Over a career, the motherhood penalty can cost hundreds of thousands in lost earnings. And that's if she stays in the workforce. If she reduces hours or takes time off, the penalty accelerates. She loses retirement contributions. She loses wage growth. She loses years of compounding career capital. Kids don't just cost money, they reduce your ability to make money. And that's a cost that never shows up on a budget spreadsheet, but devastates long-term wealth. Now let's connect this to the bigger picture. The two-income system that America runs on wasn't designed for children. It was designed to maximize labor extraction. In 1970, most households ran on one income. The second potential income was a safety net, a backup plan. If the primary earner lost their job, the stay-at-home parent could enter the workforce. That was the buffer. But over the last 50 years, that buffer became mandatory. Housing prices rose. Healthcare costs exploded. Education costs skyrocketed. Suddenly, two incomes weren't a luxury. They were required just to access middle-class stability. But here's the problem. Children need time. They need presence. They need at least one parent who isn't running at 100% capacity. The economy requires two incomes, but families require margin. oxygen, and there's no room for both. Sarah and Josh can afford their current life on 2 incomes. But if they have a child, one income gets heavily reduced by childcare costs, and their fixed costs go up dramatically. The math doesn't work. This is the structural trap. The 2-income economy killed the buffer that made raising kids financially viable. And now, the people who followed the rules, who got educated, who built careers, who saved, are being told they can't afford the thing humans have been doing for millennia. Not because they're irresponsible, because the system made it impossible. And here's the part that doesn't get said enough. The people avoiding parenthood right now aren't the reckless ones. They're not the impulsive ones. They're the planners, the responsible ones, the ones who actually did the math. They're being punished for thinking ahead. And here's what I need you to understand. If you're in your late 20s or early 30s and you're delaying kids because of money, you are not selfish. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are responding rationally to an economic structure that penalizes parenthood. The shame that gets placed on younger generations for not having kids is misplaced. The issue isn't values. It's not priorities. It's not selfishness. It's math. When housing costs 40% of your income, when childcare costs another 25%, when healthcare is unpredictable, when one parent taking time off threatens the mortgage, having a child becomes a financial risk most people can't take. And calling that hesitation selfish ignores the reality that these couples are living. They want kids, but they also want to keep the lights on. They want to avoid bankruptcy. They want to not lose their home if one person gets laid off. These aren't unreasonable goals. Avoiding parenthood isn't selfish. It's rational under this system. And once you see that, you stop blaming individuals and start questioning the structure. Let's zoom out for a second. The US birth rate has been falling for over a decade. In 2007, it was 2.1 children per woman, replacement level. By 2023, it had dropped to 1.6, below replacement. The population is shrinking, not because people don't want kids, because they can't afford them. Fewer children today means fewer workers in 20 years. An aging population with nobody to support it. This is the demographic time bomb, and it's being driven by an economy that made children unaffordable while demanding maximum labor. The falling birth rate isn't a cultural shift. It's a rational response to financial reality. An economy that can't support families is borrowing from a future that won't exist. Sarah and Josh are still sitting at their kitchen table running the numbers. They want kids, but the math is brutal, and they're left asking the same question millions of Americans are asking right now. If making $143,000 a year isn't enough to afford a child, what exactly is this economy designed to reward? If you want to know why working more makes you poorer, click the left video. And if you want to know why your raise is actually a pay cut, click the right video. And I'll see you there in a second.